So students, yesterday we were solving the exercises on the chapter metals and non-metals. And regarding the metals and non-metal, the first question is, now yesterday even though we have studied some questions, I tell you regarding the first question, which of the following pairs will give displacement reaction? So see, in the displacement reaction, 4 examples are given and we have to select that in which reaction there is a solution there is a displacement reaction. So NaCl solution plus copper metal, there will be no displacement reaction because copper is at the lower position in the activity series and sodium is at the top, and therefore copper metal cannot displace the Na from NaCl solution. Again MgCl2 solution plus Al. Now regarding the MgCl2 and Al, you might have studied that the position of magnesium is at the top and therefore position of magnesium is above the aluminium, and therefore aluminium is less reactive than MgCl2 solution or less reactive than Mg. Therefore aluminium will not displace the Mg from MgCl2. FeSO4 plus Ag, silver is at the lower position in the activity series and Fe is placed in the middle of activity series, and therefore Ag will not displace the Fe from FeSO4 solution. AgNO3 solution plus Cu gives, that is Cu is at lower position or above, Cu is at higher position than silver, and therefore Cu can displace the silver from silver nitrate solution. So in the reaction number 4 there will be a displacement reaction. So remember, now regarding this reaction I have told you when we were studying the activity series, and in the activity series we have seen element having higher position in the activity series, element which is more reactive in the activity series can displace the element having lower activity from its salt solution, And I have also explained at that time, while the purification of the gold, that the double quantity of silver is added in the gold and the mixture is then heated with the concentrated nitric acid, and you can say there is a formation of silver nitrate, and silver nitrate is soluble in water, and that water is removed slowly, and as the water is removed from the slowly, that is the particles of the gold are left behind, and again they are washed in order to remove the silver, and all the silver nitrate get dissolved in water and collected separately in the bucket, and then in order to remove the silver from silver nitrate solution, the goldsmith add copper pieces. So copper displaces the silver from silver nitrate solution, and you can say the silver is collected. Again the copper goes into the solution and silver is removed, and the silver is removed again in order to remove the copper, because copper is also costly, and therefore the iron pieces are added into the copper nitrate solution, and see Fe displaces the copper from copper nitrate solution, from copper sulfate solution, etc., and iron is not so valuable metal. Iron is not so costly, better to say iron is not so costly, and therefore it is not necessary to collect the iron, because we get the iron at the bhangar rate, isn't it? म्हणजे भंगारच्या भावात मिळते आपल्याला, त्याच्यामुळे आपण त्याला कलेक्ट करणार नाही, आणि ते किती असेल 50-100 ग्रॅम. तर तेवढं त्याची व्हॅल्यू होत नाही. बट कॉपर इज कॉस्टली. बट नाउ इट इज द गोल्डस्मिथ दे आर युझिंग द सोड दॅट इज कॉमन सॉल्ट, and in the solution of silver nitrate they are adding the common salt, and as they are adding the common salt, in the common salt there is Na metal displaces the silver from silver nitrate solution, and NaCl is very cheap as compared to iron also, and thus you can say and it is convenient because NaCl gets dissolved in the solution easily rather than iron, and it takes time, and therefore NaCl is added in the silver nitrate solution and silver is separated, and we get the fine silver which is pure about 99.9% pure. So in this way in the fourth reaction there is a displacement reaction. So have you got the idea? Then we have to study the next question. We have studied, you must have seen tarnished copper vessel being cleaned with lemon or tamarind juice. Explain why these sour substances are effective in cleaning the vessel. So you know, copper also get rusted when exposed to the moisture, air, etc., and there is a formation of basic copper carbonate, and you can say the vessel have deposition of pale green basic copper carbonate, pale green. Now basic copper carbonate having formula CuOH by 2 plus CuCO3, and lemon contains citric acid, so acid react with the base, and thus you can say the salt CuOH by 2 CuCO3 they react with the citric acid, and you can say neutralization reaction takes place, or you can say the reaction takes place, and the pale green PPT of basic copper carbonate get removed. Or when we take the tamarind, we have seen in the tamarind which acid is present? Tartaric acid is present. Tartaric acid, and I have told you tartaric acid having formula CHOH single bond COOH, again CHOH single bond COOH. So tartaric acid CHOH COOH and CHOH COOH. So this is the formula of tartaric acid, and you can say tartaric acid again reacts with the basic copper carbonate which is pale green in color, and guess the copper vessel get clean, because for cleaning we are using the lemon juice, or you can say tamarind juice, or directly tamarind dip in the water. So when the tamarind dip in water, the solution that it becomes acidic, and that acidic solution we are using for cleaning of the copper vessel. Then differentiate between metal and non-metal on the basis of their chemical properties. So on the basis of their chemical properties, for example, metal and non-metal. So see about the metals, we have studied the differences between metals and non-metal, and on the basis of their physical properties. Now regarding the chemical properties, for example, metal, they are hard, and you can say metal reacts with acid. Metal react with acid and liberate hydrogen gas, while non-metals, many non-metals, they do not react with acid, and you can say their reaction is slow, and similarly they do not liberate the hydrogen gas. So remember, this is the main difference. And similarly, metal also react with the alkalis also. We have seen metal reacts with alkalis and you can say liberate hydrogen gas, while non-metal do not react with alkalis and do not liberate hydrogen gas. So these are the two differences. Again, we can say that on the basis of chemical properties. So on the basis of chemical properties, regarding the chemical properties, we have seen their reaction. So metal get rusted, non-metals do not get rusted. Again, this is the property. So most of the metals, for example, sodium, potassium, lithium, they get oxidized. They react with the air and moisture, but many non-metals, most of the non-metals, they do not react with the air. Only phosphorus is react with, you can say, air, while carbon, then sulfur, they do not react with. And again, you know, the nitrogen also is a chemically inert, do not react with other metals, do not react with the, you can say, metals. And you can say, so these are the different points. Again, just see metallic oxides, for example, chemical properties. Metallic oxide, when metals are heated in air, they form metallic oxide. This metallic oxide reacts with acid, their aqueous solution turns blue litmus red. While about the non-metals, metallic oxides are basic in nature. When they dissolve in water, their solution is basic in nature and they turn red litmus paper blue. While non-metals, when heated, they get converted into their oxides which are acidic in nature, and when they dissolve in water, their aqueous solution turns blue litmus paper red. So these are the various points. Again, try to remember, and when our school will be regular and when you will come to the school, again we will discuss lot of points regarding the you can say differences between metals and non-metals on the basis of their chemical properties. Next question. A man went door to door posing as goldsmith. Posing as goldsmith. He promised to bring back the glitter of the old and dull gold ornaments. An unsuspecting lady gave a set of gold bangles to him, which he dipped in a particular solution. The bangles sparkled like new, but their weight was reduced drastically. The lady was upset, but after futile argument, the man beat a hasty retreat. Can you play the detective? Can you play the detective to find out the nature of the solution he had used? Now, for example, when the weight of the gold is too much reduced, that means the goldsmith used aqua regia, because I have told you that aqua regia is a mixture of 3 part concentrated HCl and 1 part concentrated nitric acid, in which the noble metals like gold, platinum, etc., they are soluble. So you can say he added that bangles in the aqua regia solution. So in aqua regia solution, the gold, the outer layer of the bangles get dissolved, and you can say when the outer layer of the, you can say, gold of the bangles, that is gold, is dissolved, there is a sparkling of the bangles and the weight get reduced, and that goldsmith then extract the gold from aqua regia solution, because there is a formation of gold trichloride, AuCl3 is formed, and by the process he removes the gold from the solution, and that is his earning. And again, thus he is deceiving to that lady, isn't it? So generally these peoples are going door to door and they ask the people particularly ladies, for sparkling their bangles and other ornaments. But don't get deceived. Don't get, you can say, you will be deceived by him, and therefore don't do the experiment like this, isn't it? So he says that all the impurity which was present on the bangles get removed, and therefore the weight get reduced. Actually, for example, when you are trying for the cleaning the Mangal Sutra, in Mangal Sutra what happens? Your sweat enters into the bead of the Mangal Sutra, and you can say its weight somewhat increases. But when you are going to clean it by putting in the acid and boiling, for example, acid like HCl or nitric acid, it does not react with HCl or nitric acid, and you can say all the sweat, the salt present in the sweat get removed, and therefore there is a very small decrease in the weight, like near about 100 milligram or 200 milligram. But in this experiment, when it is added in the aquaregia, you can say weight may get reduced to 5 gram, 10 grams, etc. So you should not do such type of experiment. Don't do your bangles to that goldsmith who ask you to clean your bangles, and there will be a sparkling of the bangles. So remember. Give reasons why copper is used to make hot water tanks and not steel, an alloy of iron. Sasi. Copper is a good conductor of electricity, and therefore it requires small quantity of electricity when we are using the copper tank, isn't it? And still in not steel, an alloy of iron. So you know, alloy of iron, you can say the melting point decreases, its conductivity decreases due to the formation of alloy. The properties of the iron get changed when the alloy is formed, and therefore we are using the copper. And similarly, iron get steel. So copper, in copper vessel, the hot water remains for long time as hot, isn't it? While in iron, in steel, it does not remain. So we say that first more important thing is that the copper is a good conductor of heat and electricity, particularly here electricity, and therefore we are using the copper metal for making the copper tanks, for making the water hot, for storing the water hot. So this is all about the exercises of the third lesson, that is metals and non-metals. So I think tomorrow is our live session, as I know, and I will inform regarding the live session to you. So again, we have to study the carbon and its compound, and regarding the carbon, I tell you some important point. So the most important point regarding the carbon is that I am going to tell you, that is tetravalency of carbon. So carbon is tetravalent, and in 99.99% cases, or in a compound, carbon form 4 covalent bond. And I have told you about the covalent bond, that is when the electron pair is commonly shared between two atoms, then the bond form is called covalent bond, and the compounds are called covalent compounds. And all organic compounds are covalent compounds. All organic compounds are covalent compounds, and therefore you remember the first point, all organic compounds are covalent compounds and there is a covalent bonding, and carbon is a tetravalent, that is it forms 4 covalent bonds. Now in the periodic table the position of the carbon is in the 4th group, that is in the 14th group of the periodic table or in the 4th group of the periodic table. So 14th group or 4th group of the periodic table. Now this 4th group of the periodic table indicate that carbon is tetravalent, and the 4th group of the periodic table contains carbon, silicon, germanium, tin and lead. So carbon, silicon, germanium, tin and lead, all these 5 elements, they are tetravalent, and also they show divalent, they are also divalent also. But carbon is a unique element. Carbon is a unique element which form 4 covalent bond, that is it is tetravalent in almost all compound, or you can say in maximum compounds. So carbon C, atomic number 6. So this is atomic number. Atomic number means, I have told you in the 9th standard, the number of protons present in the nucleus is called its atomic number. And why we take the number of electrons here? Because in the atom the total number of protons present is equal in the nucleus is equal to total number of electrons which are revolving around the nucleus. So in the atom as a whole is electrically neutral. Why? Because the protons are positively charged which are present in the nucleus of the atom, and electrons are negatively charged which are revolving around the nucleus in different energy shell, you can say in energy shell or in orbits, isn't it? And therefore while writing the electronic configuration we take the atomic number, and atomic number of the carbon is 6. Electronic configuration So see, electronic configuration 2, 4. The first shell will contain 2 electrons. First shell is K shell and second shell is L shell. K, L, M, N, O, P, Q. Last year I taught you these shells. For example, these are called principal shell or main energy levels. Now, for example, this is K shell and this is L shell. Now, K shell consists of only one sub-energy level, that is S sub-energy level, and L consists of S and P sub-energy level. So L consists of S and P sub-energy level. K shell consists of only one sub-energy level S, because capacity of K shell to accommodate the electron is only 2, and L shell can accommodate 8 electrons, and therefore S can accommodate 2 electrons, P can accommodate 6 electrons. But here we will say that 2, 2, 2. See, S can accommodate 2 electrons. Any S sub-energy level of any principal shell will accommodate only 2 electrons, and P sub-energy level of any principal shell will accommodate 6 electrons. So we have seen there are 4 types of sub-energy level: SP, DF. S will occupy 2 electrons, P can accommodate 6 electrons, D can accommodate 10 electrons, and F can accommodate 14 electrons. So what will be the electronic configuration? Electronic configuration will be 1s2. 1s2 means it is the S of the K shell, and K shell having number 1. I have told you in the last year, in the 9th standard, I taught you that there are 7 principal shell or main energy level, and they are numbered as 1 to 7, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and K shell, or they are also denoted by letter K L M N O P Q, and K shell is the first energy level, first principal shell, and S of the K shell is called 1s. And how many electrons are present? 1s2. Then here for S of the L it will be 2s2, and here 2p2. So this will be the electronic configuration. Again more detail. P sub energy level consists of 3 orbitals. P accommodates 6 electrons, and it is having 3 orbitals, px, py, and pz. So a single orbital, we have also I have also taught you that orbital is an imaginary region in a space round the nucleus where there is a maximum probability of finding the electron. So orbital is a imaginary region in a space round the nucleus where there is a maximum probability of finding the electron. So this sub energy level is having only one orbital, and a single orbital can accommodate only 2 electrons. A single orbital can accommodate maximum 2 electrons. So S will accommodate maximum 2 electrons. S of any principal shell will accommodate maximum 2 electrons. P can accommodate maximum 2 electrons. And the 2 electrons in the p orbital are present like this, 2p x1. So here I can write 2p x1, 2p y1, and 2p z0. So like this. So electronic configuration of carbon, we can write 1s2, 2s2, 2p x1, 2p y1, 2p z0. This is the electronic configuration of the carbon in ground state. This is the electronic configuration of carbon in ground state. That is in normal state. That is when carbon does not react with other element. This is the electronic configuration. And regarding the valency, I have told you that number of electrons present in the outermost shell is accounted as valency, or number of unpaired electrons present in the outermost shell is accounted as valency. And thus I have told you various definitions of valency. And see, from this electronic configuration we find that carbon having 2 unpaired electrons in the outermost shell. Unpaired electron means when there is only 1 electron in the orbital. It is when there is only 1 electron in the orbital, it is unpaired electron, and paired means 2 electrons. So there here paired electrons, here paired electron, and this is unpaired electron. So and according to this electronic configuration, carbon should be divalent. Carbon should be divalent, but it is found to be tetravalent because in excited state. So this is ground state, that is when, or you can say normal state. This is the ground state or normal state. And when carbon atom absorb energy, you know what happens in the Bohr's model we have seen. When carbon atom absorb energy, 1 electron from 2s orbital, get promoted to vacant 2pz orbital, and therefore we can write 1s2, 2s1, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1, and thus number of unpaired electron in outermost shell Thus number of electron in the outermost shell becomes 4, and therefore carbon is a tetravalent element. Therefore carbon is a tetravalent element. It shows tetravalency in almost all compounds. In almost all compounds. And in this way we have studied about the tetravalency of the carbon. So carbon in its ground state having only 2 unpaired electrons. So this is the electronic configuration of the carbon in ground state. 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz0. So actually 1s, 2s, it is not in your course, you will study in the 11th standard. But 2, 4 outermost shell, and in 2, 4, so 4 electrons present in the outermost shell, and these are distributed like this in the outermost shell in the ground state. But in excited state, when carbon atom absorb energy, and you know when atom absorb energy, electron from lower energy level jumps to higher energy level, and thus one electron from 2s orbital get promoted to the vacant 2pz orbital, and thus number of unpaired electrons in the outermost shell becomes 4, and thus you can say carbon is tetravalent. It shows tetravalency in almost all compounds, or in 99.99% cases. Okay, thank you very much, and tomorrow if I got the time I will come here and I will take your live session. Okay. Jaiswal sir? Jaiswal sir? Jaiswal sir? Oh, Jaiswal sir.